One of the most important funerary rituals that were performed on the statues of the deities and the kings and the individuals, or on the mummies and animal corpses, like the Apis bull, is the ritual of opening the mouth. This ritual aims at reviving the vital force existing within the divine entity, or the human or the animal ones, and embodied within the statue. This ritual helps in alerting the senses of the deceased, like the eyes and the nose and the ears, so that the deceased can use these senses. It's a magical ritual in its essence and is usually performed on the statue or the body of the deceased himself. The term Webet Er means opening the mouth and is related to the ritual of opening the mouth. The ritual of opening the eyes of the statue or the mummy of the deceased is called Web Erti. In spite of the knowledge of this ritual as the name of opening the mouth, yet it was not concerned just with the mouth or operated on the mouth only, but it was mainly connected with all the senses of the dead person. As usual, this ritual was performed on the statue of the deceased. Then, in the 18th dynasty, these rituals became performed on the deceased himself. The one who performed the ritual of opening the mouth of the deceased in front of the tomb was a priest in the form of Anubis, and the priest called Sem, and the older son of the deceased. That's by using different tools. The ritual of opening the mouth includes a group of rituals taken from separate rituals that reaches 6 in number. Ross mentions that the ritual of opening the mouth is a funerary ritual that reincarnates the transitions and transformations of birth and childhood. The ritual of opening the mouth of the deceased, which was operated on the statue of the deceased or on his body, resembles the same rituals that were done to the newborn child, for it equates the operation of cleaning the mouth of the newborn baby with the smallest finger of the hand. Thus, tools that resemble that smallest finger were used in that ritual. Accordingly, whatever is applied and goes for the newborn would be applied on the deceased, like eating and drinking and using his senses. It's believed that the ritual was performed in the beginning on god Osiris, like the mummification operation, and that it was Horus who performed this ritual on his father Osiris. There is plenty of signals and references in the Pyramids texts that talk about opening the mouth of Osiris by his son Horus. For in the text number 1330 of the Pyramids texts, we read, "Your mouth is opened by Horus with that small finger with which he opened the mouth of his father, and with which he opened the mouth of Osiris." Thus, the priest who performed the ritual embodied Horus, the son of Osiris, and thus the priest was known with the title of the son whom he loves, for this ritual was usually done by means of the son of the deceased. In the case of kings, the one who performs this ritual was the son and the inheritant of the throne, for the performance of the ritual is a proof to his legitimacy and his right to rule as a successor of his father. It's important to note that this ritual included a very big number of rituals that reached almost 100 rituals. Accordingly, many priests participated in its performance, ahead of whom comes a priest called Sem and the reciting priest Hari Heb, and usually these priests played the role of god Horus and his helpers in their role in performing the ritual for god Osiris, regarding that the deceased had become Osiris as soon as his death. ritual of opening the mouth was known since a very ancient time, for Otto takes it back to the era of the beginning of the dynasties, or before that. He based his theory on models of stone tools that looks a lot like the Beseshkef, which was used in the rituals of that ritual later. They were found in the eras before the dynasties and after them. Ross agrees with that opinion, and his reasons were that the picture and the description of that ritual in the Pyramids texts refers to very old origins of that ritual. The oldest proof or reference of the ritual of opening the mouth was in the 4th dynasty, and that was in the Valley Temple of King Senefro in the area of Dahshur, and in the tomb of Meten in Saqqara by the end of the 3rd dynasty and the beginning of the 4th dynasty. There were clues and references to that in the Pyramids texts and in the tombs of the individuals from the Old and Middle Kingdoms, where samples and models of tools were used in performing that ritual. There was a clear signals of some of the tools used in the ritual in the lists of the offerings in the tombs of the late Old Kingdom and in the Pyramids texts under the names Neter Wedge, Sepa Wedge, and Beseshkef. The complete picture of the ritual had reached us in the era of the New Kingdom during the 19th and 20th dynasties, for it was pictured in many royal tombs and in the tombs of the nobles and the high officials then, and on the papyri and the coffins and some paintings. This ritual became performed during the New Kingdom on the body of the deceased himself and not on the statue, as it used to happen in the Old Kingdom. The ritual became performed in front of the tomb and exactly before the rituals and the procedures of the burial right on the spot. The ritual of opening the mouth that's pictured in the tomb of the minister Rechmi Ra from the 18th dynasty is the oldest known example of the ritual, for the ritual included 75 rituals. This ritual continued to appear throughout the late period and until the Greek-Roman period, for the last proof of that ritual came in the papyrus that dates to the 2nd century AD. When the body is separated from all its senses after death, it was essential for the deceased to live again and practice and live his second life in a complete way to regain his senses and the ability to use them to drink, eat, move, and talk. The performance of the ritual of opening the mouth on the statues of the deities and the dead was to give these statues or their owners the ability to eat the offerings that were presented to them. The ritual did not aim at giving the deceased the ability to eat and drink only, but also to awake all the senses and feelings of the deceased. For example, the eyes had to open so that they can see the deities. Thus, performing that ritual was a necessary guarantee for the deceased, either he was a king or an individual, to resurrect and live in the netherworld and practice the ways of normal life with his senses, and to live in the netherworld. There were several tools used in opening the mouth rituals, like the knife called Beseshkef and the razors called Neter Wedge, or the one called Seba Wedge, and a tool of iron to open the mouth and retrieve the jaws called Diwen or Niwa, and another tool that takes the shape of a chisel and known as Medjet Fet. There was another tool that looks like a snake called Wert Hekau. Another tool took the shape of the smallest finger of the hand, and some jars and tools were used in the ritual. Each served a special purpose in the ritual of opening the mouth. that were used in the ritual of opening the mouth, which was operated on the body of the deceased after his death, were placed on a tray or a panel of limestone in which there were pits prepared in the number and figures of these tools. Many of these limestone tablets were found in Giza and Saqqara, with what it held of tools that reached usually between 8 and 9 and 15 tools. The knife that's called Beseshkef is one of the important tools that were used in the ritual of opening the mouth. It's a tool derived from the tool that was originally used in cutting the umbilical cord of the newborn baby. Then its use was transferred to the ritual of opening the mouth. That tool was made of the flint stone, and its length reached almost 10 or 20 centimeters, and it branches by the end of one of its tips to what resembles the fish tail. There were samples found of this tool since the pre-dynastic period and was used in opening the mouth of the deceased. In one of the segments of the pyramid's texts, we find a pointing with the sentence of "He fixed your jaws with the Beseshkef," and by that it becomes obvious that the tool is practically used in the birth operation and cutting the umbilical cord of the baby, besides using it ritually to open the mouth of the deceased and giving him his life back and his resurrection. This ritual is achieved and completed by waving it in front of the face of the deceased as a nodding ritual for the separation of the deceased from his mother, like the new baby and the beginning of his new life. The razors called Neterouge is a small and simple tool that looks like the small finger of a hand and was used after birth in cleaning the mouth of the newborn baby. There was a tool used in opening the mouth of the deceased ritual called Neterouge, and in that ritual this tool was used in a symbolical way to clean the mouth of the deceased to be ready to receive the food. There was a pointing to these razors and using them in the pyramid's texts from the Old Kingdom, and new models appeared of them on some panels that include the tools of opening the mouth. It's noticeable that this tool disappeared from the scenes of the New Kingdom in which these tools of opening the mouth ritual appeared. The tool called Werhikau is one of the tools that were used in opening the mouth and the eyes ritual. One of the segments of the pyramid's text says, "Open your mouth with Weret Heket." The stages of performing the ritual of opening the mouth comprises a number of actions or ritual steps that were performed on the mummy of the deceased or his statue. The ritual of opening the mouth forms a central point in it. That's why the name of the ritual was connected with it. It was finalized with the two rituals of the Heliopolitan wash and the purification. The rituals of purification and burning incense and being painted with oil few times and touching the face of the deceased by a number of ritual tools are considered the most important tools in the ritual of opening the mouth, which included a number of rituals. In finishing up this ritual, a number of tools were used, including the chisel and the hammer, and a stick with a snake head, and the knife or the tool called Beseshkef. The priest, who is entitled to perform this ritual during the carrying on of this ritual on the face of the deceased, recites, "I open your mouth so that you can talk, and I open your eyes so that you see Ra, and your ears so that you can hear, and your feet so that you can walk, and your arms to push back the dangers of your enemies." There were rituals performed on the body of the deceased that were performed on the senses of the body for the purpose of moving them to practice their natural role for the deceased so that he might be able to live again. After that, a bull was slaughtered, and the front foot of the deceased mummy, called Habash, or his statue, on which the ritual was performed, was presented, for the leg of the bull symbolizes the power and the vitality of the body. The ritual is finished by holding a big feast for the deceased after vitality and life lives in his scenes. Then the priest steps to invite the deceased to eat the offerings. This big feast comprises a big table with bread and meat and wine and fruit and vegetables, and the priest recites a saying over the presented offering and says, "Rise up, Osiris, take your seat in front of these offerings." After this ritual is ended, the body of the deceased is placed inside his coffin in the burial chamber, and the ritual that is called wiping the footmarks is performed to prevent the evil spirits from reaching inside the burial chamber. The ritual of opening the mouth was originally performed on the statues of the gods for the purpose of making these statues alive, so that they could be capable of eating the offerings offered to them in the temples. This ritual was operated on the statue of the god daily inside the temple after the statue is taken out of its shrine to receive the offerings and the daily rituals. The ritual was transformed after that to be operated on the statues of the dead or the dead themselves and on some of the small magical statues, so that it would be achieved to the deceased what was achieved to the deity by the embodiment of his spirit of the statue, or it can return to the body so that it can feed on what's presented to them of offerings.